morning from central Germany. The country has just gone into lockdown round 2. We're going to talk about our opinions on that, plus some wildlife photography. All starts right now. Let's go. So first things first, we are at the wildlife park Schafheide, which is about an hour and a bit outside of Berlin. And this is more like a kind of refuge. It's sort of open air, and they are fenced, these wild animals, but they're like bigger fences. It's not necessarily a zoo. It's more of a refuge. So a good place to do very easy wildlife photography. They've got fish otters like this enclosure here behind me. They've got lynx, wolves, moose, they've got elk. So it's all kind of relatively native like forest animals, but beautiful. We've already seen a baby lynx, which is just incredible. Really, really cool to see that. And obviously that doesn't happen too often. So I think we're pretty lucky to have seen that baby lynx. And yeah, our adventures here continue with a couple friends that are from here in Germany, and I live here. I'm from Canada originally, but I do live here in Germany. And we're going to talk about how the lockdown is going to affect our lives. So Angie, or aka Mom, went on national television last week and introduced the new Lockdown Part 2 measures.
Wir erleben einen exponentiellen Anstieg der Zahlen mit Verdopplungszeiten, die sich weiter verkürzt haben. Heute waren es zum Beispiel doppelt so viele Infektionen, Neuinfektionen wie vor einer Woche. Veranstaltungen, die der Unterhaltung dienen, werden untersagt. Gastronomiebetriebe, Bars, Clubs, Diskotheken, Kneipen und ähnliche Einrichtungen werden geschlossen. Ausgenommen ist die Lieferung und Abholung mitnahmefähiger Speisen und der Betrieb von Kantinen.
Thank you, Angie. Brief interruption from the future to let you know that this video is sponsored by Squid. No, it's not actually sponsored. Not sure if you got that one, but I realized that when I was editing, I totally forgot to mention Photo Voyager, which is the Antarctica expedition and first ever floating photography conference that was meant to take place this year, but of course, due to the pandemic, it's been postponed until December 2021, which is still 14 months away, but the information online has sort of been updated, and Brendan mentioned it in his video today. So I'm going to link this in the description of this video so you guys can take a look at the updated info. We've got a new ship, and there's more dates and more information about the itinerary, and a bit of a change in the crew as well. So if you're interested in learning more about that, it's linked in the description. Antarctica is like the final frontier for a lot of travelers and photographers. It's going to be the photography, adventure, and expedition of a lifetime. And there's still, I think, 20 spots available. So definitely check that out, linked in the description. But for right now, let's jump back into our video. And from what I can understand with my perfect German, we're going back into lockdown with things like restaurants and cafes and pubs and bars all closing. They're not going to be open for the entire month of November. And then they are, however, still opening schools and like kindergartens and malls and shopping areas. But then sports are being shut down as well. So there's no more organized sport of like team sports. So all the football in Germany has been re-canceled, which is really tough for kids and parents because football is such a part of this culture and of people's sort of daily lives. So big news coming here from Germany. And how do these new closures and new effects for Lockdown Part 2 sort of affect our daily lives? We made it to the wolves, and there are 2 wolves that are just behind me in this enclosure, and I was able to get a couple really nice shots with EOSR and 4K with the crop mode on, as well as shooting at a 2.8, because if you are watching this video for wildlife photography, if you're in an enclosure and you're shooting through a fence, you really want to open up your aperture to be able to get rid of the fence and get as close to it as you can. So I'm at 200 at a 2.8, and my shutter's at like 1/80th because it's kind of overcast and dark in the forest. I was able to get a couple really nice shots of the wolves. So So this lockdown Leben, how is it affecting us or you or the general public here in Deutschland? It really does depend on the person and the job and the industry. And I think that overall it's good to have sweeping kind of reforms and rules. But for round two, it's got less teeth. It's got less of a bite than it did the first time. I think, you know, the first time was a big shock for everybody and people really wanted to morally do the right thing and stay at home and whatever, not see other family members, and to really take that lockdown and that quarantine time seriously. But now, I don't know if it's like pandemic fatigue or what, but it seems like other than people wearing the masks in public places, there's less like desire of the general public to follow all these rules. You know, the sweeping closures of places makes a big difference, but when you keep schools open, you know, and you keep like shopping malls open, it's hard to restrict people from traveling as well. We just got quite the show from the wolves. They were attracted by the dog that we're with, and I'm actually a bit surprised you can even bring dogs into the refuge, but it has definitely worked to our advantage in the wolf enclosure. There's 3 wolves just came up to see what the dog was doing, right? And the dog is only like 5 months old, so it has definitely never seen any wolves before. And that was a really, really interesting wildlife scene. So we got a couple of really good photos and definitely some good video footage. And another tip that I wanted to mention about wildlife photography, even though this is about the lockdown, if you are interested in photography, definitely shooting manual focus when you're in front of a fence is huge. It's really, really important because the fence gets in the way of the lens. As I said earlier, if you're with telephoto, you're at a 200 or 300 or 400 millimeter range. You definitely want to be shooting in manual focus so that the fence does not get in your way. Back to the lockdown. What is your take, your opinion on these new measures that have been implemented here in Deutschland? And what is that like in your country? Like, do you have the same lockdown issues right now, or are you facing different things? And how is that affecting you in your daily life? I want to know in the comments below, because it is different for everyone, depending on your job, the industry that you work in, you know, your family situation, if you have kids, what the deal is with school, then traveling and all that stuff. So I want to know your opinions on these lockdown measures in the comments below, and we can begin that conversation there. There's a big open field here in the wildlife refuge, and they have Przewalski horses. Now, if you don't know what that is, it is an endangered wild horse species from the Asian steppe, and I've actually seen these in the wild in Mongolia last August. So very, very cool to see them again here, because when we got to Mongolia, I didn't even know that there was an endangered wild horse species from the high steppe of Central Asia, and this is the second time that I've ever seen them, and this is the only time I've seen them ever in an enclosure. So very interesting to have like kind of a remote-ish wildlife refuge north of Berlin. And what do we find? Przewalski horses. Not only wolves and lynx and moose and elk, but these amazing endangered Mongolian wild horses. And there they are. You can see 2 of them just behind me in the background. And if you don't know, I forgot to sell my own tour, but we are going back to Mongolia in August 2021 because the first trip was so good. If you haven't seen those videos, check them out. I'll link them in the description. And also there's a couple spots left. I think we've got about 8 people already signed up. I'm really hoping that that trip is going to go forward because those people are really looking forward to it. And if you want to be a part of that adventure as well, be sure to check out the link in the description. Brendan's Adventures in Mongolia 2021 with yours truly, adventure photography in the wild. Lockdown round 2 has mixed opinions from those who I've talked to and friends here in Germany. I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts on the whole situation down in the comments below, depending on where you live and yeah, what's happening with your life. But for us, I think it's a necessary evolution of the current situation, because there is a second wave and a spike happening in Germany, and it's important that they get on top of it, the government and the whole society here, before Christmas, because that's the big sort of holiday here where families obviously get time off work and come together, and it's going to be really difficult for German families not to spend Christmas with one another, just like any other country. But the Christmas markets and that whole tradition is really strong here. So I think one of the reasons that the government has put this this lockdown into place is to try and save Christmas. As funny and kind of cheesy as that sounds, but it is a necessary measure that doesn't have as much teeth as the first one, but hopefully we can work together to try and curve this wave so that everybody can enjoy the holiday season. And going into 2021, we've got a much brighter sort of outlook and future, especially for the travel industry. So those are my sort of final thoughts. But again, I'm looking forward to what you think. And that's it from us here from the Wildlife Photography. Hope you liked the video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.